Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Super-Fanta-Fi. This being a show where I talk about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and/or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the series premiere of brand new Cherry Flavor. A great series premiere. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Going into this, because I saw the trailer once a little while back, but I didn't realize this was like a 90s series. But I kind of knew the gist of the story going into it, so it was kind of interesting. Like, because immediately, even when we started, I thought it was weird, because that's why I wasn't sure if like we were doing a fast forward thing of like the person that was following her on a bike. I was like, is that kind of like, oh, what is it? There's that Stephen King movie. It's got, I think, David Arquette in it. It's about, I don't think it was, wasn't it? I think it was about a car and this dude basically making a deal with the devil. I can't remember what it is. But like I said, I think David Arquette's in it, the movie adaptation, if I remember correctly. I watched like some of it years ago, many years ago, and I don't remember. But it kind of like, so part of me was like wondering if like all that stuff had already happened, and we're kind of doing like a res media thing of like starting at the end and then rewinding, showing you where we got to, because like the dude seemed like he was following her, and I was like, is that like some like demon in the form of a human, like, oh, like I'm almost like a crossroads demon type of thing? That's what I was curious if that was, but it's like, no, the story hadn't even actually technically started yet, because she's coming to LA because she's a filmmaker, because she's meeting with a producer, Lou. Now, really quickly, breaking down a few things. One, Rosa Salazar. I'm not well versed in all her career. I've never seen Alita Battle Angel. I want to. I've never have. As you know, I don't watch many movies. I think the most recent thing I saw her in was the Amazon animated series Undone, which I really enjoy. So I think that's the only thing I'm really familiar of her filmography. Obviously, Manny, I don't know, butcher's last name. Is it Jacinto? I'm probably butchering that. Freaking Jason from The Good Place. I was like, yeah, I saw him in the trailers. That was, freaking Kathleen Kenner, which like I will always, because I think the first thing I ever saw her in was 40-Year-Old Virgin, so that's one of the things that will always first come to my mind. Oh, and Roy, played by Jeff Ward, freaking Deke from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., so that was pretty cool. And then also Lou. Now, I have to look into this because I can picture in my head, I was like, I feel like I recognize that actor. Is that the teacher from Victorious? It just clicked in my head. I have to actually look into it later on, but I think that's the teacher from Victorious, if I'm not mistaken, which I could severely be mistaken, but I think it might be him. Interesting if it is. But regardless, it's interesting. Like, it turns out like her, Lisa, and Code used to date or something, because like meets with like his girlfriend Kristen later on and be like, oh, you guys used to date. She's like, I wouldn't say date. I guess it was like a very super casual thing. And now it's like, oh, like, did your girlfriend know that I was staying here? He's like, no, but that should be fine. She seemed okay with it. She works in real estate, and I don't know if it was kind of like I'm weird about. She seems pretty okay with like her current boyfriend's semi quote around it ex. Staying there, but she's meeting with Lou, and Lou's trying to basically make her short film into a full-length movie. And we get a little peek into what Lisa's movie is. It's Lucy's Eye. We get basically about like kind of like she has this thing with our eye. We don't really get into it too much, but it's like a superpower. And so I think that movie is going to be the main theming of this show, because it fits the narrative, but also, like, if you look at some of the promotional material, like, on just Netflix alone, like, in between episodes, like, it was showing, like, a picture of, Rosa Salazar, the character of Lisa, with an eyeball in her mouth, kind of like a cherry. Then I'm like, oh, like, so it's stemming back to that eye thing, having powers, and, Lisa's thing is, like, right, a full-length movie, it's like, people want, because at first I was like, oh, I'm definitely getting, like, some Psycho vibes. From that, like, OG, like, Hitchcock Psycho vibes from it. But basically, she was saying the full length is going to be that, like, people are going to want that from her. Like, they're going to take it from her no matter how much they have to, like, even if they keep taking from her, even no matter how much it might kill her. So, like, once again, just then, now within the context of the entire episode, you're looking back and you're like, okay, you could feel like that's going to be, like, the weaving theme throughout this series. And I guess that was kind of them foreshadowing a lot of what we'll potentially get in the future. But, For Lou, this is important to him because he hasn't really had a hit in a while. So for him, he's like, yeah, I got this strange feeling about like, yeah, I saw your tape there, and I just like something told me watch it, pick it up, and so that's setting everything in motion. But then like Lisa sees like, whoa, there's that dude on a bike again. So making her deal with Lou. Lou's offering her like $10,000 and stuff like that, telling her to get an apartment and stuff because she is basically living out of her car. Because we don't get too much context, but there is a thing of like, right, what about your actress friend from the woods? And she had told Code, like, yeah, I kind of like hurt the people around me. He was like, you haven't really messed up the people around me. When she was like, you have it with me, which I'm curious, is that going to change? Like, is that kind of another foreshadowing thing? We're like, oh, you've never done that, but like over the course of this, he ends up being a casualty. Because obviously at the heart of this is a story of revenge. And I've said it recently, like the whole... Because I always think thematically it's such an interesting thing about like revenge. It's like, if you're looking for revenge, dig two graves for the person you're going after and yourself, because revenge is a double-edged sword. And in this case, I think it is going to be a double-edged sword that has a very wide berth, in the sense that it's going to swing super... It's going to have a wide radius, and a lot of people are going to be caught up in the swing of that double-edged blade. So a lot of heads are going to get lopped off in the process, and metaphorically speaking. Hell, for all I know, literally speaking in certain regards, but because it's been a while, so I don't remember everything from the trailer. But obviously she had like one of their buddies, like I guess one of Code's buddies, look into it, and even Catherine being like, Kristen being like, you should get. I think just because Catherine Keener, I'm thinking Catherine instead of Kristen. But it's like, oh, you should actually get a lawyer. It's like, I can't afford a lawyer, but home dude's like, oh no, it looks all good. A producer would never hire a director they couldn't fire, which is kind of interesting to think about. I'm sure there's a little bit of like present day of like, yeah, I don't know. I guess in my head I had that thing of like, it is crazy to think like, oh, you could like a director could technically fire. I feel like you rarely hear the terms of, oh, this director was fired. It's just kind of like, usually we went our separate ways, which could just be, it's usually softening the blow off. Yeah, technically they went fired, creative differences type of thing. Like, you know, it's like you hear enough like entertainment news stuff, you kind of like, I'm not as pessimistic, but a lot of people kind of tend to be like, oh, creative differences, blah, 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 blah. People tend to like look at that through like a more pessimistic lens than maybe I am. I don't know. It just sounds jaded sometimes when people kind of look at through it in the lens, but it's just interesting because I feel like a lot of that thematics of 90s Hollywood, I think maybe the whole point is just how some things that even though it is 2021, a lot hasn't changed in these 3 decades since. Well, 2 decades because we were entering the third decade from the 90s. You get what I'm trying to say. But like that, so much hasn't changed in the past 2 decades. It's just, I think maybe that's kind of a parallel. Because this is based on a novel, but I don't know when the novel was written. If it was written more recently, that kind of fits that, you know, especially if it was written like in the mid-2000s or even like the from the 2010 to like 2020, somewhere in that range, it just makes it even more pertinent in certain regard. It's interesting to think about because I haven't read up too much, obviously, on the book, so I'm going into this series just knowing. I haven't read the book at all, but just also like I'm just going into the series based on like what I saw in the trailer initially. That's what piqued my interest about it. But regardless, it probably is kind of a bad thing of like getting a Joe Schmo because he's like, oh, like I have my own movie. He almost sounded bitter himself, where he was just like, oh, you're meeting Lou. Good for you. Like it, I mean, but I think that plays into the theme of like Hollywood being the place that it is, that it will devour your soul. It's eat or be eaten, prey and predator very mentality. Then, but also like I said, like how much when you hear about everything, like how much that hasn't changed in this time frame. So like I said, I think it's also a pertinent story in that regard as well. That I think that's supposed to be the point. But it's like, yeah, because even if I get my movie, like, I'm solidified being the director, so I won't be screwed out. It's like, I'm going to be directing my movie because she wanted to be the one to direct it. No one else can. And so, obviously, you have to pitch not only the movie, you actually have to pitch yourself because it's like, right, why should why should we hire you? Because usually it is a thing of like, right, to get a movie sold, you need people, the producer needs to collect enough money from other people being like, all right, we'll invest in this movie because you're getting a well-known name associated. And so Lisa has to actually pitch herself, which isn't necessarily easy. because it's like, right, don't talk about what you're not, because he's like, oh yeah, like I saw a murder, like a stabbing in front of me, and the police, everyone's waiting on bated breath, sketch artists and everything for my description, and all I'm able to say is the killer's not a jellyfish. Don't tell me what you're not. He talks about the whole conversation about a North Star, like, who is your audience? And it turns out for her audience is her mom. Her mom left a little after she was born, and like, she's like, I know it's silly, but on some shape or form, like, if I make my movie big and if my movie's made, I think on some level maybe she'll see it and know it's from me, like kind of a letter to her mom wherever she is out in the world, like, I'm here. Because I think this episode's title is I Exist, and I think that can have multiple meanings in certain regards, but it's like, yeah, they're gonna meet with the money dude Alvin to get the money for like the movie and everything, and it's like, cool. And then it's like, all right, seems like everything's cool, and it's like, and Lisa's like, no matter how this all plays out, I want to thank you for everything. And then he proceeds to touch her leg, and you're like, okay. And there's this sleazy producer move, okay, because I was like, I knew that was like the crux of it, like I just didn't know. I was like, okay, when's it gonna creep in? Like, he seems pretty legit now, like, so he's gonna be like a hard 180, and it's like, yep. I mean, the argument could be, it's like, no, it's never been a hard 180. It's been there the entire time. It just took that very much. He took his shot then. He's just been waiting for the perfect opportunity for her to feel indebted to him. It's like, oh, cool, I can make him a move and everything. Once again, it's that argument of like, not argument, but point of like, right, if he did it, Lisa look cool, so has he done it too? Because he's found someone who's new, fresh face, who's willing to do whatever, like to get like this project made. But she was kind of like, no. She's like, I think we're a great team too. They go to the party. He's like, I'm gonna go find like, oh, Alvin's here somewhere. And then also she runs into Boro, which I'd skipped over it. Like there was that creepy scene because like Kristen was like, oh yeah, be careful about the coyotes. Obviously, like it sounds like the actress who plays her, like, and probably just Kristen herself in general has like an Australian accent. But the point was, she woke up to a whole bunch of cats eating a coyote. I was like, no, that's disturbing, because it seems like cats are going to be a big theme in this as well, because the show opens on a cat, like in the middle, like it's laying about, and then it's in the road. But like that creepy lady Boro shows up with the cat. And it's like, hey, basically she's like, I'm keeping an eye on you. Basically, do you that guy that you came here with? Yeah, he's having a very important conversation without you. And then like did the whole imagine he's a house thing and break something. I'm curious, like, what does she break? Because the moment he comes back later on, he's like, yeah, nosebleed. He's like, I haven't had Coke since like 85 or 86. I made a promise to my wife I'll stop. He's like, that's weird. And then Lisa was probably like, wait, did I just? No. It's like the whole thing of like, cool, like, here's my address, like, come to me, like, if you want me to, I can hurt someone for you. And it's like, because I was like, it seems like you've taken an interest in Lisa. The fact is that you were outside her place when those cats were devouring the coyote. Once again, metaphors upon metaphors upon metaphors. Because I'm like, is she one of the cats that's supposed to be eating a coyote, or we're going to find out that she was a coyote being eaten the entire time? I mean, I think you can make the argument she actually is a coyote because she kind of got eaten alive by the Hollywood system. So I'm like, are the cats supposed to be That's why I'm like, am I getting too like God, I feel so pretentious saying that. Like, am I getting like trying to be too avant-garde of like, oh, the layers and what this could all mean and symbolize and foreshadowing and the metaphors? Like, I feel like so douchey saying that, but like, I am like legitimately curious, like. I think it's going to be that thing of like, it's not till we get further into it, probably not till we reach the end where you realize, okay, everything has kind of come full circle. But I feel like a lot of this episode is them planting the seeds in many different facets of just how things will unravel and play out over the course of the series. So regardless, she's such a weird, because like I was like the way, like the whole creepy thing of like, oh, like that whole like like I will always associate it as a Batman thing of like disappearing like that. Like, oh, you're here one moment, and well, I mean, it's a kind of a horror thing too of like, oh, this thing is here, something or somebody walks by, oh, you're gone. It's like, the hell is that about? So, Lou drove Lisa away like after he was like, oh yeah, you're getting your movie made, yeah. She's like, am I directing it? It's like, yes, Lisa. Jesus, like, how do you handle bad news? And it's like, well, you made a lot of, you saying that we were in this together, and you kind of, the whole point was for not only you to talk to him, you were going to like smooth things over, then I was going to introduce myself, and then we had the more official meeting. Like, you made the whole point that I'd walk away from my movie then, but it's like, you did all that without me, so I'm like, that's pretty suspicious. He had those conversations by himself, and that's what I'm curious about later on. Like, after, well, first and foremost, he makes that move against Lisa, tries to kiss her. She's like, no. Well, no, it's just kind of, he's making her come to, she's like, why are we here? And he kisses her, and she's like, I'd rather walk home. Then, like, when she was in the bath, she was trying to wash it off her arm, the address, and it's like, did not come off. I was like, okay. Yep, getting weirder and weirder as the episode progresses, and it's like, oh, she was also like, right, when you come to my address, bring my cat. She's like, you left with your cat. And then said cat appears in her apartment. It's like, okay, that's weird. Then she finds out, hey, so you're not directing your movie. Someone else is, and she goes to his house to confront him about it. And he's trying to make it seem like it's her fault. But once again, he's trying to say, like, hey, this is the system. Like, we've all played our part in it. It's like, yeah, you're not getting what you want, but you're still getting something in the long run. Oh, it's going to help you in your career. And like, trying to sweet talk it. And she's just like, I want to hear you say it. Like, why are you punishing me? And it's like, it sounds like, it definitely sounds like I wouldn't fuck you, so you're punishing me for not, you know? And now you've, like, literally took away something that is precious to me. It's important to me because on top of it, he knows how important this movie is because that movie is her, like, message to her mom. You know that. And he's just kind of like... And then later on, follows her outside when she was upset, being like, oh, is that your wife out there? What's her name? Maybe I should have a talk with her. And it's just like, you got to kind of accept that. Let this be a learning lesson. And so... as she's leaving, he's like, right, you kind of, you know, I think you need to apologize. She's like, wait, you want me to apologize? I thought he was going to try and smooth things over, because he's like, oh, shouldn't leave things as they are. Yeah, and I was like, I thought he was going to try and, I knew, regardless of, even if he tried to apologize, he's still going to be a scumbag, but I thought he'd be with some self-awareness enough to be like, oh, like, I'm a scumbag, but I'm going to try and smooth things over. It's like, no, I want you to smooth things over with me. You owe me apologize. She's like, you're a fucking, like, you haven't had a hit and whatever. You're, like, basically a fucking loser. And then he puts his hands around her neck and starts choking her. It's like, you're a fucking nobody. You're a fucking void, and blah, 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 and mentions her mom, like, trying to stab and cut deeper. And it's just like, get out of here before I call the cops. It's like, wow. No more pretenses, hon. You got what you wanted from her. Once again, it's just that Hollywood's the beast that will chew you up and spit you out and will devour your soul. You know, like, once again, that's me being super pessimistic, but you can't help it because, like, literally anytime you hear people talk about Hollywood, Hollywood, LA in general, but specifically Hollywood, you just hear about how much of a nasty business it is that will spit you up and chew you out. It's like you come there so bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, you know, wishful thinking, hoping that your dreams can come true, and that place will break you and shatter you. It's just the nature of the business. Once again, super pessimistic, but it's also because I am a pessimistic person with optimistic tendencies, so I can lean into the pessimism a lot, even though I try not to. So it's just like, this episode kind of feeds that pessimistic nature of mine. I'm like, oh, you just feel bad for her, because it's just like, that movie's her soul, it's her everything, and to have that taken from her. And so she shows up at Burroughs, and then we see the guy, like, I was like, wait, the dude's about to take off the helmet. I was like, yeah, we're going to find out it was Burrough underneath. It's like, no, it looked kind of very like a zombie dude. And I'm like, he doesn't look dead, but he looks like, kind of like, making zombie noises, so he might be undead. And you're like, what the hell is that? Go into, like, her place. It's kind of almost like a botanical garden almost. Then, like, Lisa sees some other dude over there, and I'm like, what is with this? Oh, this is weird. And then there's the whole thing with, it's like she's tattooing a guy. You see those toenails, you're like, okay, this is... Because I think the trailer definitely hints to, like, Burrough being, like, a witch or something. I mean, I think they pretty much covered that even early on, but it's like, okay. So it's like, where's my cat? And it's like, I didn't bring your cat. Can you hurt him? It's like, all right, you have to... And then, like, it's like, right, you're going to have to pay me. You know, I'll do whatever you need, just payment. And she's like, and she says those magic words you should never, ever say, because I've watched enough stuff to know that's a big no-no, is I will pay anything. It's like, never offer that. Never let that be your opening statement of I will do anything, I will pay anything. It's like, cool, because that's that's the Jen type of genie story where it's like, cool, I'm gonna give you what you want, but it's gonna come with a price. Kind of like a Monkey Palms type of. Is it Monkey Palms? Yeah, I think that's like a Monkey Palm type of thing of like, yeah, just you're gonna get what you want, but like obviously that's what the movie. Because I recently had someone reference the movie Bedazzled, and that was the very nature of that. Like, oh, making a deal with the devil. You get what you want, but it's never always going to be the way you want it to be. There's always going to be the asterisk. You should have paid attention to the fine print, which kind of plays into the whole like how Lou ended up ripping Lisa over like off and screwing her out of her movie. So like once again, just thematically, it kind of all like plays into itself in that regard. Because I think, once again, the argument could be like, oh, of course there'd be a place in Hollywood where you literally make a deal with the devil. Not saying Burrow is a devil. I think she's just legitimately like a witch. And she's into that stuff. And it's like, okay, here's the first payment. And then, like, Lisa starts coughing and groaning. I'm like, what the hell is this going on? And it's like, oh, it's been inside of you the entire time. Basically, like, it's the core of you where everything comes from. And then she starts spitting something. I was like, what the hell is that going to be? And it turns out to be a cat. I was like, what? I was like, whoa. So are all the cats we saw, like, are these cats supposed to be like, is that Lisa selling her soul? So are all those cats the souls that she took from people as payment for doing what they want? Is it supposed to be like a manifestation of who you are? Like, is it supposed to be your essence? Because I'm like, now because immediately I'm like, at the end of this, is Lisa gonna walk away like being like those guys that are around her, like her like, is Lisa gonna be one of her servants? Because she's had her eye on Lisa for a while. Like, as we saw, the biker dude was there before. Like, Lisa's like, oh, I'm an hour outside of LA, and that biker dude was there, and he was following her. Like, he's like, for whatever reason, there's something. She's like, you have no idea how special you are. Like, maybe Burrow isn't trying to like. Maybe Burrow's trying to make her replacement. It's like, right, someone needs to fill this void, so I'm preparing you to be my replacement type of thing. I don't know. I'm once again watching these one episode at a time, one review at a time, so I've only watched episode 1 so far, but that's immediately where my mind was like I said, I first immediately thought the soul thing. I'm like, is that what that's supposed to be? We'll find out more about it, but I'm like, okay. It's like, so say what you want. She's like, I want my movie back, and I want his life on fire. It's like, whew, all right, be careful what you wish for type of thing, you know? So that's definitely going to be interesting. I'm also curious to see what ends up happening out with, like, Home Dude who read the contracts. I'm sure, like, Lisa's going to be giving him the middle finger. But also his girlfriend, the whole plastic surgery thing. It's like, oh, yeah, she's supposed to look like Daryl Hannah. And I'm like, I'm curious how the hell that's going to turn out. Which, interestingly enough, if I'm not mistaken, like, yeah, Netflix-wise, Daryl Hannah was in Sense8, so it's just, once again, I'm overthinking it. It's a stretch to just be thinking about, but I just think it's fascinating to think about. But I'm like, I'm curious where all that's going to come into place. Like I said, I think the people around her are going to ultimately be paying the price for her need for revenge. Like I said, it's been a while since I saw the trailer, so I don't remember everything that's going to go down in this. But I'm really excited and really interested to see like how Lou's life is going to be set on fire, how she's going to get her movie back, and at the end of the day, you know, revenge is never worth it. Will it be worth it in the end for Lisa? I don't think so. But we've got 7 more episodes to find out. I'm very excited to see what happens next. Do know I'm going to be releasing these all at once. I'm not going to make any promise of when I'm going to put this up because I never put stuff up when I say I'm going to, just because like I get distracted with other stuff and it takes me so long to finish some of these things, especially because I am doing them one episode at a time and just like finding time to squeeze everything in. So, but yeah, just know that whenever it is that you're finally hearing this, the other episodes are either coming up over the course of this day, or they're already, or at the very least, they should all be out. Like, just keep that in mind. They're going to be up in the next couple hours after all, so on and so forth. Hopefully, you know the idea if you've been around. If you're not, just know I'm going to be releasing these all at once if you're new and coming across this channel, my reviews. But regardless, like I said, I'm very excited to see where the next episode takes us with all of this. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Until the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.